Hello VC, this is Ron. Hey, thanks for joining me. Now in today's showing, I'm going to do some Canadian albums, and I'm going to show original 60s and early 70s Canadian releases, and also going to show some reissues of rare Canadian albums. And I found an album a few weeks ago, and that kind of really wanted to get me into doing this, as well as a video that Dawson Loops did a while back where he showed a bunch of Canadian psych rock. So I found that really fascinating because I've always loved Canadian vinyl, because it's so just the parallel difference is it's kind of like US stuff, you know, but they changed it a little bit to reflect UK covers and stuff like that. So well, let's get going. What is on the turntable is Simply Saucer. And Simply Saucer was out of Hamilton, Ontario in the early 70s. And they only released 145 in their day. And and then later on in '89, a Canadian label released this album of previously unreleased material, 74 demos and 75 live. But this is an Italian Get Back reissue from 2003, and let me get the hype sticker on it. So it's a mixture of proto-punk and space rock. It's kind of like a punky Hawkwind. So very cool. It comes with this heavy cardboard sleeve. And there's a little bit of liner notes here about the band. So really cool. Check them out. This is highly rated among a lot of Canadian collectors as being the best Canadian band, or the best Canadian album, I should say. So I don't know if I can agree with that, but it's definitely killer. The sound quality's pretty good for what it is. I mean, it's not crystal, but it's alright. Right, a couple of weeks ago I picked this up, and it's, yeah, like I said, this is one of the things that really wanted me to do this kind of video. And I got an original stereo copy of the Byrds Mr. Tambourine Man. And it's on the early styled label with the black 360 sound stereo banner at the bottom. Now, there are some US copies that got out on that label as well. In fact, I used to have one. And like a fool, I got rid of it in the 80s, and to this day I've not been able to replace it. I think those just came out of one pressing plant. But yes, when I was doing a little research on this, I found out that Columbia and the United States sent the stampers up to Canada. So Canada made their covers and they pressed the vinyl, but they used the United States stampers to press this album. So it has the US matrix codes. Okay, I'm going to show my animals. This is Best of the Animals. And this has got a little bit different cover where it doesn't have a gatefold. The US copy does have a gatefold, and the back's a little bit different from what you would find on the United States. They kind of mixed the two inner sides of the gatefold, they kind of mixed them together to create a unique cover. And this is pressed on Quality, which is a major manufacturing company in Canada. On the back, it's got a couple little things here. It says Byrds Canadian, and over here it says printed in Canada on Canadian paper. Now the rest of these Animals albums will be on the MGM label, but they were pressed by Quality. This is Animalism. And it's got a unique back cover compared to the US copy. It's got a picture of the animals in the zoo. And it's on the black MGM label. This is a stereo Winds of Change. This album was released in mono as well. Stereo Twain Shall Meet. Now this has got a notation at the top that is not on the US copy. And it says, this stereo album may be played on mono equipment. For full sound reproduction, use stereophonic needle. This is Every One of Us, and that has that same mono stereo needle statement at the top. It's got a white banner at the bottom that the US copy does not have, and it mentions Quality Records. Now this was probably, I think this was only released in the United States and Canada. And by the time this album came out in the US, it was on a two-tone label, and in Canada they stayed with the old style MGM label. This is another one that was only released in Canada and the US, I believe. It was released in the UK, but in the UK it was released as a single album. And that's Eric Burdon and the Animals, Love Is. And right here it has that same stereo mono needle thing. Yeah, like I say, it's staying with the black label. Bangor's Flying Circus on Dunhill. This is pretty much identical, I think, to the US counterpart. I believe this is the original very first pressing of the Collectors on Warner Brothers. Now this is the true original because the Collectors were from Canada. And it's on the gold Warner Brothers label. Now this was released shortly after, I believe, on a different label. I can't remember the label, but I believe that the Warner Brothers version is the very first pressing. Then we got Kinks Kingdom, mono, and they took the UK cover art and they put in the United States it wasn't Kingdom, it was Kingston, or Kingdom. So what they did was they took the back cover of that and they put it on the back. So it's the front's UK and the back is US. And they use the red pie label like they do in the UK. Stereos would be blue. Now this is a mid-70s reissue on the Marble Arch budget label, and this was taken from a UK release. Now I was doing some research to find out when this was released. I think it was 76, I think. I found out that there's some errors of this cover. So if you find this and it has a black and white photo, you have the error. And not only is it in black and white, but the photo is reversed. So instead of Dave being over here, he will be over here. So if you have that or ever do see it, it's a collector's item, so definitely grab it. Then I got Osmosis, which is sort of heavy jazz rock. And I believe they were from New York, I think, if I remember right. Orange RCA label. And if you read the bottom, it says that the cover was printed in the United States, but the vinyl is printed in Canada. So I think what happened was US RCA sent covers to Canada. Canada pressed their own vinyl. Then I got the first, Dirty Water, the Standells, the first one on Tower. In the United States it was on Tower, but in Canada it was on the Spartan label. And this is a mono pressing. Very cool label. Spartan was a big label, along with Quality in Canada. Yeah, when I originally showed this album, I didn't show the inner sleeve. So this is the inner sleeve. I got the first Sir Lord Baltimore. Killer heavy hard rock. Now in the United States we had the Unipack where the album would slide in right here. But in Canada they made like a standard gatefold cover where it opens at the end, which is totally cool. And they had a little bit different label design compared to the US. Actually a lot different. It's more in the style of a UK label. It's Mercury. I don't know if Mercury had vinyl in the UK. Perhaps somebody can tell me. But it's definitely a UK style label. Then we got Tano's Expanding Headband. Experimental prog electronic music. And this does have the Unipack. Different style label compared to the US. US we had the green and red Atlantic, and this is a red Atlantic. Okay, that does it for the most of the original releases. Now I've got a few reissues of albums that were released in Canada, but they were not released in the United States originally. So this is Sussex by Bent Wind. This is killer heavy acid rock. And I bought this in the late 90s. This does have the original album as well as bonus tracks. And they reproduced the original Trend label. No insert, nice glossy cover. And then we got the 49th Parallel. And I believe this is their only album. Came out in '69 originally. And this is a reissue. And there's some 45s of the band, as well as their history. And they reproduced the original Venture Records label. This is good. It's a little more commercial, pop psych and not real heavy on the psych. Side 2's probably more heavier sound than what's on side 1. I would say it's a pretty good album, but it's nothing great. Then we got the killer Plastic Cloud Heavy Garage Fuzz album. Fantastic. Nice heavy. Originally came out on the Allied label. Well, Allied put it out. Yeah, Allied, okay. And I think they reproduced the original style label. And it came with a little insert. So very cool. Now the final one is an original Canadian album that I bought a while back, and it's high buck. I did pay quite a bit for it. I would say up towards top dollar, I would think. I got it here locally in Phoenix, and it's The Passing Fancy. And this album originally came out in '68, and it's on the small Boo label. It's in clean shape, real nice. And it actually consists of Canadian Columbia 45s. More garage vein. There is some psych rock on this, but it's not real deep psych. And most of that's on side 2. So very cool. But the cool thing about this is that when the 45s on Columbia first came out, they were mono. This presents them in true stereo, so that's nice. So that does it for the showing. Okay, you may have noticed I have quite a few candles burning in the back, and this is my first video since the passing of Tom Petty. So that's sort of my little tribute to him, and I'm not going to say it with words, I'm just going to say it with candles. And I've always had a candle or two burning in my videos, I'm sure you've noticed that. But this time I have quite a few more. Yeah, I was quite saddened by his death, and I did see him a couple of times in the early days, and I never saw him later. I wanted to, but I just never went. So just gonna close the video with the shot of the candles, and I will catch you guys next week. Later.